And we just, when we write the villain, we say, well, we're going to make him a little worse than Jonah. We have to make him a little worse, but we don't want to make Jonah too nice, because that's the fun of watching him, you know, for hundreds of issues at this point. And so when you look at a character like that, you just say, you know, you enjoy the madness that he is, but you, again, you just push it a little further for the bad guy. But everybody's bad in that book. Everyone is bad. Jonah's bad.
Yeah, exactly.
He's a bad man.
That's the thing. When I wrote Irredeemable, the whole card I had that I kept playing was, that doesn't mean it's about the main character Plutonian. Irredeemable actually applies to several different characters in the story as the story unfolds. And you all to see, some of the fun part to me was taking these other superheroes in the story and slowly peeling back the layers on them and letting them sort of reveal why they also are complicit in some of the things that he did. And some of the ways that this superhero became a supervillain, and why, in a sense, they all consider themselves irredeemable. Hey kids, comics. Hey kid, you're my problem. Yes, sir.
Well, I'll be really quick here. First of all, just a thought. For some reason, I'm thinking Brian Azzarello should be up there because he handles villains really well. Also, I'm gonna go back and on the movie here, way back. A villain I actually think is better than Hans Gruber. Do you guys remember back in '92, what I still think is Daniel Day-Lewis' best movie, Last Mohicans, Magua? That was a cool villain, you know. I mean, once I watched it, I understood why he did what he did. And another villain that comes to mind, I don't know if you people like anime, was an old school cartoon called Star Blazers, Deathlock. As the series unfolded, you know, he actually wound up helping the Star Force, but at the end he was acting for the benefit of his planet. I was like, wow, yeah, that's really cool. That was deep for a children's cartoon back in the day. So.
Not really. Well, I mean, Dan, you're probably with me on this, that part of the fun of writing a villain too is they get to change in ways that the heroes don't necessarily, especially in serial fiction.
Yeah, you get to watch over time is like, you know, when we first meet Dr. Doom, he's just, you know, he's a bad guy. And then you get to see stuff like that John Byrne done in one, where it's just a day in the life of Dr. Doom. Yeah. And you're like, oh my God, he's hugging a child, he's thanking his personal chef. You know, Dr. Doom needs to get his laundry done. And then you're like, wow. You know, yeah.
I think I was that way with the Silver Surfer when he first showed up, and he seemed pretty bad. Nasty stuff was happening, and I thought he was bad until Galactus showed up.
Yeah.
And that was really bad. He was the destroyer.
He's just hungry.
That's right. Everybody can relate to Galactus, because everybody at some point has been that hungry. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Brian, and this question's for Dan. Really enjoy, huge Spider-Man fan. Enjoy all the in-jokes and the spider buggy references, so thank you. Would like to know, I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but how long will we be seeing Doc Ock as Superior?
Peter Parker is dead.
Okay.
He's never coming back. Oh, you will see the Spider Buggy sometime in 2014.
Awesome. And, you know, Peter Parker won't be back considering there's a new movie.
Peter Parker is dead.
So, the next question then would be, I enjoy your approach in Avenging Spider-Man where we don't see Peter's spirit. So will we be seeing that approach in Superior?
Read Superior Spider-Man #9. It's a game changer. A game
All right,
changer.
thank you.
Hi, my name's Lisa. My question is for Jane. I really love Rumpelstiltskin and Regina's relationship. I think it's amazing, really complex, especially since they're two villains and they're a duo kind of villain characters. It's really interesting. Do you think that they see each other as villains or heroes or both?
Oh, that's interesting. I think they see each other as villains, if they had to check one box. Because part of, both of them have a very single-minded, very focused goal. Rumple in particular, I want to find my son. And so since the other person doesn't share that exact same goal, the other person is more likely to be an obstacle than an asset. If they can be manipulated into being an asset, or if your goals happen to align for a time, that's great. But since they aren't, I think both of them are so like, if you aren't on my team helping me get my goal because you really want it, then I think the part of how they both see the world is like, well then, you don't get to, like they're not people who have close friends. So I think the villain is the first category they push the other person into. But should their goals ever perfectly align, then they'd love that. And they would not be averse to teaming up when that happens.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Andrew. This is for, I guess, everyone on the panel. Going off of Mark's comment about how a particular character would resonate with you. Has there ever been a time when you've either seen or written about a particular villain that, you know, it made you think and reflect upon yourself?
Brent, you know, when you Brent,
or am I going too deep here?
Brent, let's hear from Brent for a second. Like when you're working with Kurt on this stuff, or other projects that you've worked in on your career, I mean, all the way from Kazar and so forth, all the way up, like, what, is there any, like the gentleman said, is there any sort of moment with dealing with villains, drawing the villains, bringing them to life on the page that make you sort of reflect on how you connect with them?
Yeah, I think the villains that are the most appealing to me are the ones that reflect some possible dark side of myself that, because I'm the one in control, I want to change that. I want to know that there is some redemption possible for that part of me that I'm seeing in the villain's act.
That's a really good answer.
You know, I wrote this book back to Brooklyn, and I have the hero kills his mother in the book.
Yeah.
And I didn't think it was any big deal, except when people were reading it, they're going, "How did you write that? You know, that's so horrible."
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, but he's not the bad guy. It's actually the brother that's worse than him. And you know, and I came up with the scene before Garth and I wrote the whole book based on something, and I realized I have to actually spend a lot of the series making that bad guy a lot worse than the hero, so somebody cares at the end about this guy. And it's an interesting challenge. But
It was a book about horrible people.
It was a book about horrible people, but I never, you know, I didn't take it entirely. I kind of chuckled at it because I kind of was like, well, that's extremely horrible, and I'd like to read that.
Well, I mean, the myth in entertainment is that Hollywood executives are always telling you you need somebody in the story to root for. You need somebody to be a good guy, and that's crap. What you need is someone. What you need is someone who you can sort of root for, whether you want them to get the big goal or not. You still, on some level, you want them to achieve what they set out to do. They don't have to be a good guy, you know.
All that matters is its interest.
Exactly. Good question, sir. Thank you.
I actually want all those people in this Mad Men world to get away with the money at the end. And I'm always disappointed when the money just falls down into the crowd. I guess they get it, you know.
It was that ladder was the bad guy. The ladder.
So earlier you were talking about making villains subtle or having sympathy towards the villains. Is there ever a danger of making the villains too subtle or having the audience be too sympathetic for the villain?
Yeah, the Punisher. I mean, that's seriously, the Punisher was created as a villain. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There was no subtlety to the Punisher at all when he first showed up, right?
He was the bad guy.
He was a bad guy.
Bad guy.
But there's something, he resonated with the audience at that exact moment. There's something about that character in that sort of early, this is back way before you were born, by the way, which makes you feel insanely old. That, you know, in the Dirty Harry, you know, Clint Eastwood way, there was something vigilante-ish about that character that appealed. And then as that character kept appearing, began to have his own fan base, which is really screwy and weird, but, you know.
We had a thing at Marvel where we were doing a Nightmare on Elm Street comic, and it only went like 3 issues, and we had the license, and it was doing well. And we just kept getting all this fan mail from little kids going, "I wish I was like Freddy, I wish I had these claws." And we just went, "We're not doing this book anymore."
Yeah, nothing will chill your blood like fan mail from like some guy to go, "Oh, that issue of Irredeemable where the guy fries the baby with his heat vision. I love that moment." I wish you could have heat vision too, sir.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Hi, my name is Daniel. This is for the panel. Have you ever found yourself writing a villain whose motivations are compelling enough that you've had to change the story to keep it going longer, have the villain win a few more times before the hero eventually gets him in the end?
Good question. I can't. Anybody?
Well, yeah, I can start with that. A lot of times you create a villain that's actually a lot more interesting than you thought it would be, because you're starting to get into what he's doing and how he's, messing with the hero, and then it starts to grow on you. The character starts to grow on you. And we always have this, when the publishers say, we need a 3-issue arc, and you're 2 in, and you're like, oh, I want like another 5 more for this guy. So, and because writing, a lot of it is organic, these characters grow on you, and all of a sudden you realize that maybe I want to change that story, because this guy's a lot more interesting than I thought he would be. So it happens. It depends how wonderful your publisher is at the time, whether you can kind of go that way or not. But a lot of times I find the audience let you know right away if that character is going.
Yeah, I think sometimes on a series, for example, casting comes into it. A character that you write on the page and might be planning its exit out of a series at a very early date. A great actor comes in, inhabits that character, you start discovering things about it that you didn't know, and the actor brings to them, or vice versa, and sort of that process of collaboration makes it very elastic, and you want to expand that person's story and continue, and we had that happen a few times. And especially with our terrorist group from the future, who are back to try and change the present to their viewpoint of things. And so we would invent flashbacks to do and flash forwards so that we could tell a little bit more of their story. And it might not have been plot driven, but just a little tone poem about who that character was, and that was fascinating.
When I was doing Arkham Asylum Living Hell, and we were growing all these new villains, Ryan Sook and his wife just fell in love with Humpty Dumpty. And originally, Humpty Dumpty was going to get, by the end of it, he was going to get a lobotomized and have a crack going down his head and just be like a vegetable. And my artist and his wife teamed up against me. You're not doing that to Humpty Dumpty. Everyone just fell in love with him. And I don't think I could ever break Game of Thrones or something like that, because I couldn't. If the guy's really, I don't want to kill him. I want to play with him. I keep getting that. Oh, you shouldn't have killed that guy.
I think Angelus is a good example, and Angel, when we saw Angelus, we saw how Boreanaz played him, and suddenly there was this joy in the performance, whereas Angel's so broody, and it's like, when we saw that, it's like, oh yeah, Angelus will be back. We'll see more of Angelus. Angelus is a hoot.
I can't believe it shows him over Spike.
Hi, this is an interesting discussion, and when I'm listening to you, I'm listening to basically that heroes and villains are separated by nothing. And so I'm wondering, except perspective and circumstance and context, and I'm wondering when you're writing, is there a moral or ethical line that the hero doesn't cross and the villain does? Is that how you determine who's a hero or villain? Because, I mean, I know you're in love with your villains, but the hero is the drive, should be the, or traditionally is the motor behind the story, so.
But there's always redemption, Angel is the hero of Angel, and did he slaughter? So it's like that journey from bad to good can be compelling too. And I'm thinking of in the original miniseries that launched Battlestar Galactica, the decision to run away. We can stay and we can fight to the last man, or we can run away and hope by that way we are perpetuating humanity. That's not a decision a hero normally makes, is that we're going to run away and hide from the bad guys. And yet it's the entire thing that started the depth that is that show. So I don't think there's a line a hero can't cross and come back from, because it's the coming back that makes them even more of a hero.
So is a villain, are they divided by each other, or?
I think part of what you said when you talked about perspective is really important. A way I look at it sometimes is there are procedural shows. Restoring order on chaos, for example, CSI, Law and Order. In those shows, the hero is an idea almost more than the individual characters. I mean, we get to love those actors playing the roles. Whereas if you take something like Dexter, I can't imagine that story being told in any other way than with that character, so it requires that perspective. So it's sometimes we do fall in love with our villains, but it also depends on where they play in the telling of the story. And your point is taken. Celebrating destroying Manhattan or destroying DC or destroying, I mean, that also has its own kind of exhaustion.
How many of you guys root for Walter White in Breaking Bad? Okay.
You know when he poisons a kid.
Nice.
Yeah.
Spoilers. But that's part of it. That's part of the fun of that, and watching the downfall and seduction of these characters. Your mileage may vary, but my rule of thumb is always that your story is not really interesting unless somebody is making an interesting decision in your story. And the more unexpected and yet logical and in character, the better. But somebody in your story had better make an interesting decision that the reader didn't see coming, or else, you know, it's going to be a forgettable story.
And you don't have to feel completely good about the characters you were rooting for.
No.
If you walk away feeling a little troubled or something, that's probably good. It meant the story really got to you on some level.
Yeah.
And yeah, the more that it's muddy, the more it's like life, because we aren't split into hero and villain categories in life. So if to put the label hero and villain on a lot of characters, it becomes really hard, and that's probably a really good sign.
Whenever I'm writing Spider-Man, my editor, I grew up reading The Flash, and in The Flash, all the rogues loved calling themselves rogues, and there'd be these points where I'd have a character refer to himself as a villain, and every time Steve Wacker will take it out of my script and go, no one thinks of themselves as a villain.
No.
And I'm glad he's there as my editor.
Villain doesn't even mean that. If you go back to the medieval thing, it just meant like somebody who took too much of his portions at the table. Are you villain? You just lock them in. They're not like some real
Professor Paca.
Yeah.
Like, you should tell them that, you know, Shakespeare always had his villains.
Yeah, everybody's a villain. They get villains all the time.
We have come a long way from the days when Marvel published stories about a group called the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. That's an interesting membership drive you must have.
I like the Superman Revenge Squad, because it's like their charter is in the name. It's all right there.
The Legion of Doom.
And I think too, part of what the villain's role in any story is to teach the heroes something about themselves they don't know, that they haven't yet discovered about themselves. And so for that is such an important purpose, that role that the villain has in teaching. In the finale of Continuum, Kagami says to the person who might actually be the hero of the story, you know, if you drop a stone in the ocean on one side of the world, it can create a tsunami on the other. And in a way, that's kind of what the villain is doing for the hero, ultimately, is propelling them on that next stage of their journey.
Yes, some of the most interesting villains are the ones whose part of their purpose is to spur the hero into changing, is to have a direct effect on the hero rather than just the hero as somebody who's in his way. And we've seen that a few times. That's always really dark and fascinating. I wish I could think of some examples right now. Just imagine. All right, you get one more brief question. All right, All right, we got time for a couple more questions.
This
really? That's awesome, actually.
This is an awesome costume.
Yeah.
This question's for Jeff Parker.
Yes.
Surprise.
Also the panel at large, especially with a book like Thunderbolts, where continuing the theme of redemption, do you feel it's possible to ever have someone be completely redeemed and then just go on from there and be a good guy? Like with Songbird saying that, you know, you never escape that. Like, how do you feel about a villain who wants to make good? Like, can you really ever make good?
Yeah, and that's why in Thunderbolts I didn't try to do it too much, because I you know, it was funny. There was the one two-parter everybody always brings up to me, the sign that they say this is my favorite part is when the Thunderbolts had Hyperion added to their team to go fight giant monsters in Japan, and Hyperion turns out to be just the worst thing ever. And he practically tries to kill the Thunderbolts. And at the end of the story, the Thunderbolts essentially come together and curb stomp them. And the whole point of it is that's where they suddenly decide they're a team. It's not necessarily noble. They're just deciding, you don't mess with us. We're a team, even if we don't like each other. And I remember my editor at the time said, well, can you write something else in where, you know, it's like someone says we've got to do this to save, you know, that I like, that's not the point. They don't care about Japan. They just want to beat Hyperion, and the readers will get that. And they did. I got more mail on that than any other thing. You know, it was something, that's when everybody could relate to them. And, yeah, but I agree with the first thing you said.
I think it's impossible in the shared universe to do the redemption arc because
no one will read our comics, as you pointed out.
Yeah. No.
And they'll just go ahead and make Boomerang a bad guy again.
I know, like me. No, because I always do that as an example. Like I was screwed over all the Jeff Parker stuff whenever I did this. No, but like I put Constrictor on a redemptive arc through almost everything I was doing until I left the initiative, and then I turn around and Remender just has him as one of 8 guys robbing a bank.
Yeah.
And you're like, and then I turn around and I use Boomerang like that.
Try to redeem the Wrecking Crew sometimes, see if that ever gets
Someone always tries to redeem just one Wrecking Crew guy, and then someone does the story with all 4 robbing a bank again, and you just go,
all they do is rob banks.
Yeah. Don't own a bank.
Thank you, that's the awesome troll costume. Awesome. Can you show everybody, because this is like, this is pretty good. Well, Kev Walker designed it hoping people would cosplay it, and I'm going to send him the pictures because he'll love it.
Awesome, thank you.
My question's for Jane. The Miller's Daughter episode.
Yes, Once Upon a Time.
Excellent. In terms of the origin of becoming a monster.
Yeah.
And the romance between Rumpelstiltskin and Cora, which I didn't know about that until somebody named Jane told me about it. How did you come up with casting it, and what was the, in terms of the season, how do you think that really fits into the whole thing?
Yeah, casting it was, the guys were sort of like, who would be a good young Barbara Hershey? And they thought of her, whose name is escaping me, Rose McGowan. Yeah, and it's like, and we were all like, oh yeah, Rose McGowan's awesome. Does she look like Barbara Hershey? I'm not entirely sure. Go, oh my God. She looks, and we've had other amazing luck with Bailey Madison, who plays young Snow White. And I swear there is, sometimes in the dailies, when you first look at it, you don't know if it's Bailey or Ginny, even though one is, 20 whatever and one is 14. Like, they're so identical.
Bailey's a great choice. Yeah.
Bailey's amazing. So, so that was just, the guys saw something that I hadn't immediately seen, and then as soon as I saw Rose McGowan's picture, I was like, yes, perfect. The origin of a monster, yeah, that she was treated unfairly as a youth, had a chance to redeem herself, and when she saw the chance to redeem herself and that her heart was going to lead her into love and happiness, her reaction was to rip out her heart so that she wouldn't have to deal with that love and happiness and could get on with being a villain. I think that, we came up with that in the room. That was an entire staff working together and sort of saying, like, what do we think, where do we think evil like Cora's comes from? Did she ever have a chance? How would she have reacted to that chance? It just came out of that, of like people were talking about redemption. Like, what happens if you reject redemption? It makes you extra super evil because you have that chance. And that's what, the other 2 villains, like Cora and Regina. Regina's terrible until you meet her mom, and then suddenly Regina looks pretty reasonable. So it was just a fun way to play with that backstory to explain a lot of character traits we'd already established.
Great, thanks. All right, we get one more question from young Doctor Who here, intern Who. I really want to hear intern Who this question. Yes, sir.
If Batman, came to the Marvel Universe, how do you think he would face off, Green Goblin?
He would have won.
Batman, this is just a lesson you should learn at an early age. Batman wins every fight there is.
Chuck Norris? Batman?
Even Chuck Norris.
Daryl.
I want to wrap up real quick. We got to split because they're closing out the room for the next panel, but I want to go down the panel real quickly and just hit you guys with, real quickly, your favorite villain of fiction.
I'll start at that end, please.
God. No, wait, I would have had a good one. You're not being graded. There's no test here.
I just think Moriarty. I know.
A fiction.
I know.
Wayne LaPierre. A fiction.
I know. It's like your brain just went weird.
I know.
All right.
And it's not really, it's not really a villainous villain.
Yeah?
It's Godzilla.
Godzilla? Misunderstood.
I'm going to go with Wickham from Pride and Prejudice.
Yeah? We're sticking with Moriarty.
because it's not so much that you ever really see him, it's that Sherlock Holmes builds him up so much.
Yeah.
Holmes is losing sleep over him all the time, so he's like Harry Lime when he comes out. He's, boom.
Yeah, that's true.
I think from my favorite villain line ever, better to rule in hell than serve in heaven, is from Satan Says It in Paradise Lost.
Yes. Hard to go wrong with Satan as one of your big villains.
Of course, it's repeated by Khan, so you know what's good.
Yeah, I think the handsome Dr.
Little tiny star.
Exactly. He is not horribly disfigured.
No, he's not horribly disfigured.
The kid in me went right to Thanos.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I loved Thanos and Captain Marvel books. I always did.
Yeah. I guess it's a big villain. Yeah, exactly. Dan?
It's Harvey the Joker.
Yeah,
He's just a Joker. He's the best.
It's true. I would go with Lex Luthor. I actually think that Lex Luthor, because I think that also two things, because I love that dynamic when these guys were friends and became enemies. I love stories where brothers become enemies.
Me too, because with Batman, he's all about imposing order in the world, and Joker's ultimate chaos.
Sure.
So I like that. Because so much of our life we want to make everything work.
But Wickham can really damage a young lady's reputation.
Well, on that note, if you want to catch some of these people, let's do it on the outside rather than rush the stage because they've got to set up the next panel. But thanks very much. Thanks for coming.